SKYPE here to bring you guys the next episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! And by popular request, we are going to do Dragunities. Now, this deck is a deck that, once again, I did pick up at one point in my Yu-Gi-Oh! Career. I didn't really know about this deck. I heard about it. I heard back, I believe it was in 2011, I want to say, I heard about when the deck came out, the structure deck came out, and it was said the deck was going to be really good, that you could get a lot of the pieces. The main thing you were trying to get was the Dragon Ravine. You were just trying to, build the deck and whatnot. And a lot of people were not sure, how good was the deck going to be. People were saying Effect Veiler killed the deck, MST killed the deck, a lot of things killed the deck. But then one of the really good players, Fraser Smith, brought it to a top, I believe in 2011. And it was the first time Dragunities were really put on the map. And it wasn't a deck that really did like super well. To my knowledge, I don't think it ever won a YCS. It was just, it was a fun deck. It was a deck that people could bring to a top at like locals, or they could bring a top at a regional, or even possibly other YCSs. It's been a really long time since I looked into this deck, but this is a deck that I actually think has potential. Granted, even with Veilers around, some people are starting to cut Veiler, they're starting to main Maxi, some decks aren't even maining hand traps at all. And I think the deck is, like I say with every deck, I think every deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a chance if it's built properly and piloted properly. And this deck is no different. This deck is cool, this deck is fun, and, if the combos go off, the combos go off. I think this deck is like a hidden, this is a sleeper deck. This is a deck that people are just not, like, prepared for. Like, you go against Dragunity, and you've never heard of the deck, you're going to read, like, half the cards and wonder, what's going on, like, what do I do? And it's going to be really interesting because the deck can stand alone as, just a really cool deck. It has a lot of control, and I feel that even though the format is super overwhelmed by Water and now Fire Fist and, Rabbit and other decks like that, I still feel there's a place for Dragunity in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm just going to get into what I remember from this deck, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and, like, busted plays with the deck. So let's get into it. So what's good about this deck? What's good about this deck is that the monsters have amazing synergy. Your Duck, your Legionnaire, your Phalanx, all the Dragunities have their own synergy. Phalanx being the main one you want in the graveyard. So easy to get it to the graveyard. This was probably the hardest card to get until the Hidden Arsenal came out, because you could only get it in DT, and it was a very expensive card. Even when it came out in the Hidden Arsenal, for a long time it was very expensive. And it was expensive for the fact that it was the main part of the engine. This is the main card you want because it is a tuner that can unequip to start your synchro play. So this card was very, very important. Phalanx was a very hard card to get back then. Dux is great. It gains attack. It becomes a beater. You don't really use it, I think, that much, because you can summon it, do your Phalanx play, and make your Stardust or your Vajrana. Usually you go Vajrana. Vajrana, whatever his name is. It sounds like vagina, but anyways, Vajrana. And you make it, and you start your combos. You bring out Phalanx again, and you synchro to Stardust, synchro to Scrap Dragon, synchro to whatever. It's really, really cool. I like it. Legionnaire is great. Legionnaire, being able to pop cards is good. You're able to select a face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy it. And people who don't know, if you combo it with Achilles, I think it's Achilles, you're able to select one card on the field and destroy it as well. So usually, if you go Legionnaire and what do you call it, and Achilles, you could do busted combos. You could kill 2 cards at a time. So I think that was really, really cool. This was like the first deck that ever played like Inzectors, where like monsters came from the graveyard, equipped it, and then were launched off or summoned to do like crazy shenanigans. So that's what was really cool. Other cards were later added. This was a card that I didn't see a lot of, but this is a new one. Well, not a new one, but it's a card that I saw people are starting to main now. I basically took this template from the OCG, since they do play Dragunity out there. This one is Dragunity Armor Missile. I'm so bad at pronouncing Yu-Gi-Oh card names. Well, this one, it's a level 7, I believe, and its effect is you can special summon this card from your hand. You send a face-up Dragunity monster you control to the graveyard. When this card is normal or specialed from your hand, you can select a Dragon-type Dragunity monster in your graveyard and equip it to this card. So basically, you could use this, and you could get your phalanx, get your ankles, do whatever you need to do. You can do more busted combos. You can do a lot of things, which is really, really cool. You could even just, equip pretty much any of them, which is great, and do some shenanigans. It was an easy 2100 to summon, worked really well with the effects that the deck have. So this was just a card that I saw in the OCG, and I decided to put it in there. But as you guys can see, I have all the Dragunity cards here on the side, just ones that I don't think are used, ones that came in the starter deck, and cards that are just ignored, of course, aside from the main ones. Like a lot of people aren't using like Brandish Shot or using like these other cards. These are some of the synchros that don't get used, but for the most part, the deck had a lot of synergy with these cards. Another card that was added to the deck was Zephyros the Elite, for the fact that you could use Ravine with it. You could use Ravine, activate its effect because it says once per turn, but then you could bounce it to your hand, special summon Zephyros, and use it again. So that was really, really good. You got a lot of pluses off of that. Ravine, I felt in this deck was Ravine and Terraforming were amazing in this deck. Terraforming was never a minus in this deck for the fact that you use Terraforming to either search Ravine or you could pitch it for Ravine. And I think that was really busted because you always wanted to get Phalanx or Ankles into the graveyard, or you wanted to add a Dux or a Legionnaire to your hand to get your combo started. And that's what was really great about this deck, is that it flowed really nicely. Besides that, there were just ways to, get around your opponent's monsters. Basically, you relied on your synchro plays with Vajrana, going to Stardust, doing Stardust combos to make the Trident Dragon, which I'll talk about as the Yugioh part of this deck, as this card was an OTK card. So what I liked about the deck is it had a lot of synergy, it had a lot of power. You could use cards of consonance with Phalanx or Ankles, and that would get you 2 more cards to your hand. So that was really, really good. Your main goal was to get them to the graveyard. So that's what was good about the deck. The deck had a lot of synergy, it had a lot of power, and it was heavily synchro plays that really made it effective. Now, what's bad about it? What's bad about Dragunities is, like everyone says, it's true. Valor rapes this deck. MST rapes this deck for the reason that when you summon Dux, you summon Legionnaire, you go up to activate its effect. If they Valor, your monster's just sitting there, and unfortunately they're not that strong, so they can't really stand alone without protection. So that's one thing that could be a real problem. Another thing is that they are very reliant on the graveyard. So cards like Dimensional Fissure and Macrocosmos would really hurt this deck. Other cards that hurt this deck are like random DD Crows, things that just like hit the graveyard. Necro Valley, all that stuff can really hurt this deck. Deck Devastation Virus could really hurt this deck for the fact that all the monsters would literally get hit. Really, really crazy. And, that was just one thing, is that the deck is very easy to counter because the monsters are not that strong and they are heavily reliant on the graveyard. And I've noticed in Yu-Gi-Oh right now that if your deck has low attack monsters, has a heavy reliance on the graveyard, and you're not able to MST away the macros, the D fissures and combat cards like that, you're going to have a hard time if your opponent's main decking or side decking into macro and or D fissure, because it will hurt your deck in the long run. So that's what I see is bad about the deck. And also, like I said, with Mermails and Fire Fists and Rabbit and all kinds of decks running around, I don't think this deck could keep up with the speed of those decks. And that's what I'd say is the only thing that's bad about the deck. I don't think the deck is terrible. I think the deck is still viable. Like I said again, if someone builds it properly and pilots it properly, it will do well in the hands of the right player. So I feel that that's something that should be noted and it should be taken into account. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the Yu-Gi-Oh part of this deck. There is apparently an OTK with this deck. I believe it relies upon the Vajrana into the Stardust into the most broken card, Trident Dragon. People who don't know what this card is, you use Stardust and you use your Phalanx, and it's a level 10, and you synchro. And this card is amazing. When it's synchro summoned, you're able to destroy up to 2 cards you control, and if you do, for each card destroyed with this effect, this card gains an additional attack this turn. So that means that you could summon this, you could pop a Ravine, you could pop whatever, pop 2 cards. This card gets to attack 3 times, and if your opponent has an open board, you can attack for 9,000, and that's game. That's what was really broken about this card, is that if people got this card off and you had no response, like, it was game. It was amazing. So yeah, so that's pretty much it on Dragunities, you guys. I guess like the other things I'll talk about, like Vajrana being your main one. Other ones I saw that people are actually using in their extra decks were a Gale Durg, because you're able to add a level 4 or lower dragon type or wing beast monster from your deck to your hand, and then you're able to discard a dragon or wing beast, so you're able to really just send stuff to the grave and get it where it needs to be. And then Gale Bug is one that I didn't even know they ran, but this is a card I saw in the OCG's extra deck. If it's attacked or attacks during the damage step, you can remove from play one. You can remove only one winged beast type monster from your graveyard, and this card gains the attack. So basically, you can go attack and then damage step. You can remove, and it can gain a lot of attack. So that's really, really good. But yeah, that's my whole synopsis on Dragunity. I hope I covered like the main parts of it. I don't know what builds look like these days. Like, if people have video responses of builds they have, feel free to send them to me and I will approve them. I really do like this deck though. I like a lot of decks in Yu-Gi-Oh, and this is a deck that I myself ran, and I thought it was really busted. I thought this deck was great, and I still think the deck's good. Like, not doing main macro or main dimensional figure. Like, this deck could be really good again. I feel even then with 3 MSTs and a heavy, they can play around that. So I'm not going to say the deck is completely outclassed at all. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Leave your comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I want to do this for you guys. I'm going to be heading to Tahoe tomorrow, so I will be doing video sexy, like, snow background, just because the snow is awesome. Like, if I could get like the perfect like winter wonderland, it would look great in the background. So hopefully we can. But I hope you guys like this episode. Thumbs it up, comment below with your thoughts, video responses, anything you want to talk about Dragunities, leave it in the comments below. Let me know what you think it would take to make this deck good again and viable again, or is it viable right now? I'll just leave it in the comments below, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So that's all I got to say, guys. Thank you for watching.